In this unit, we're going to study a bunch of different graphs. We're going to start off with circle, line, and bar, which you may be familiar with, and get into some more challenging graphs. The first is the circle graph. Circle graphs show parts of the whole and usually written with percents. They always have titles. They have sectors that are often colored in different colors or used different black and white notation. They have a label for the sectors. And are often, we really want to remember, parts to the whole. Line graphs always show data over time and are always numerical, which means they go from one number on the horizontal axis to the next. In this case, both the horizontal and vertical axes have numbers. It's because of the numerical data. Since it's always data over time or continuous data, the data in the bottom here on the horizontal axis is always an amount of time. Could be minutes, seconds, days, weeks, hours, or even test 1, test 2, test 3. Bar graphs is another kind that you're familiar with. It shows individual data and compares data with bars. In this graph, it shows the tallest trees in my backyard, the 3 tallest trees. I could create something called a triple bar graph, which is the same information, except it compares 3 different pieces of information. For example, Miss Hagen, Mr. Cohen, and Miss Broderick. In this graph, each bar has a color that goes with the key. So Miss Hagen's tallest tree is here in green. Miss Hagen's second tallest tree is also in green, and her third tallest tree is in green. The same goes for Mr. Cohen and Miss Broderick. In this way, I can compare all 3 of their tallest trees, all 3 of their middle or second tallest, and their third tallest trees. This is different still from what's called a histogram. In this histogram, we can see tree heights at Walden Pond. In this example, we're not looking at individual data anymore. Individual data was what we saw in a bar graph. In a histogram, we're looking at groups of data. We're looking at trees between 0 and 30 feet tall. We're looking at how many there are between 31 and 60, 61 and 90, 91 and 120, 121 and 150. And it shows us how many by using the scale on the side. This is called a histogram, which is different than a triple bar graph, which is different than a single bar graph. There's some vocabulary that we need to know in order to be successful in this unit. The first 2 are about the axes, the vertical axis and the horizontal axis, as shown here. The scale is what runs the numbers up and down. It tells us how many or how much. The scale in this example goes from 0 to 25. The interval is what we count by. So if we look at the numbers in this example, we start at 0, count by 10s up to 50. The interval in this example is 10. These 4 vocabulary words are important for you to know. If you don't know them, I would recommend stopping the video and writing them down. Vertical axis, horizontal axis, scale, and interval. Another kind of graph we might notice or that we pay attention to in this unit is called a dot plot. In this example, we're looking at soccer goals this season and the number of goals. This means that there was a game that we scored 0 goals. In fact, there were 3 games in which we scored 0 goals. 4 games in which we scored 1 goal. We scored 2 goals twice. 1 score was 3 goals. We haven't had a soccer game that had 4 goals total, but 1 with 5 and 1 with 6. The last kind of graph may be new to many. It's called a box and whisker plot or a box and whisker graph. This kind of graph shows the range of data from the least value to the greatest value. In this example, if we're looking at the science tests in Orange class, the score that was the lowest in this case was 50%. The score that was the highest looks to be about 83 or 4%. It also shows the shape of the data. It looks at where the data is clumped. And the reason it does that is it breaks it into 4 equal sections called quartiles. There's one quartile in this first line. There's one quartile in the first part of the box. There's one quartile in the second part of the box, and one quartile at the end. This means that 75%, or 3 of the 4 groups, are between, looks like 78 and 84. We can look at how that compares to this other graph of science tests in red class. In this one, the lowest score was 60, and this highest score was close to 100. However, most of the scores are in this range, around 70 or a little below. Which class do you think you would rather belong to? This is a review of graphs from Chapter 1. Please watch the video again if you want to look back at any of the information about circle graphs, line graphs, bar graphs, triple bar graphs, histograms, dot plots, or Bosc and Whisker plots.